just listen to some motivational shit of Joe Biden in 2020 and when he was a little bit more coherent, a little bit more audible. What is the guy now? 81? Maybe he's older. A little bit older than Trump, but Trump in his second term now is like how Biden was at the end of his first term. It's the same thing basically. They're both elderly men, And I'd say about the first two. It's raining out, so I don't know if you guys can see. It's raining. But rain's like my favorite weather. I thrive when it rains. Not all the time, but like that's like my favorite weather. I don't really like sunshine that much, but that's why I'm pale. I'm as white as can be. But I think we're kind of in the same boat as far as 2020 was with the elections, except in a way we're kind of the opposite, but yet we're also in the same boat. It's hard to explain. So, like, if you're like a Democrat, and I'm a Democrat, or at least a registered Democrat, I'm a lefty, but it's like you're kind of in a similar boat as what 2020 was, where it's like you got these polls and it's a pain in the butt because it's like you want to believe the polls, but the polls are always off 5-6 points in the election. It's not like they're polling people, every single voter. You know what I'm saying? They're just polling likely voters or eligible voters or independents, and so it's like anything can change and stuff. So you got to take that with a grain of salt, because 2016, I was thinking that Hillary was going to win. I didn't vote for Hillary in 2016 just because she was that unlikable, and that was like my transformation of my political ideology and getting more educated into stuff and reading stuff. And it was only in his second half of his first term, of Trump's first term, that I realized like it was a cult and stuff, and it wasn't genuinely helping people and trying to improve people's lives. But I think we're like in a similar boat where it's like, you have you have kind of like a loss of hope. I think it's like the general feeling for people right now, and it is. It kind of feels it's a sadness in this country. It really is. Like with our Congress, majority, you got Democrats that have lost both. What do you call it? Both controls of the House and also the White House. So you basically got a Republican White House and Congress. So they can basically just pass their agenda, and it's like, it's not even really like politically, even though it is. It's like of genuinely like helping people and improving people's lives and shit. And like you'll look at their policies, and it's just they're god awful policies. Like it doesn't take a fucking college educated person. It can just take an average Joe like you or me or any other blue collar person that hasn't went to college to know, like, you go and look at the legal or the meat and potatoes of the policies and stuff, and they're just tax cuts for the wealthy. And I know that sounds like a popular thing by Democrats and critics of the Trump administration, but they really are tax cuts for the rich. Because they're like, you go and look at the thing, and it's like I think his tax bill, and this was several months ago, was like it, and it would change too, because it wasn't the finalized product, but it was like every person on the top 1% was like would get like a $35,000 tax refund, and we only got like, and this is at the time when they were trying to iron out with the no tax on overtime thing that people were still believing, and like, they would still tax like 2/3 of your I think it was around 55 to 60% of your overtime shift premium that they would still tax. But like I only got like a $500-600 tax refund, and I made, you know, my highest amount or whatever when that thing took into, into effect. And it's like, this is fucking stupid. Like, people made it out like, oh yeah, you're gonna get so much back, you're gonna get so much back, and it was like, no, you're not. Yeah, it was nice to get the refund, but it wasn't like it was life altering money to fucking, you know, get something nice or anything. And it was just, I guess I'll just put this into my nest egg because we have an unstable country. Everything's going up. All the increase in prices of everything basically eats away at that tax refund. But yeah, it was like the average person in the top 1% would get like a $35,000 tax refund, and with me, and depending on other people's tax income brackets, it might be a little bit different. But for a single person, not married, I only got $600 back, and I was like, yeah, it's nice to get that because you're always paying in, but that wasn't jack shit. And then when you go and look at the tax bill, it's like after that, it's like it screws everybody over. I think it was Medicare or Medicaid, I forget which, because again, I look at the shit, so I lose track of numbers and different words. So sometimes I have like Joe Biden gaffes here and there. So, but you kind of get my gist. Is like they've already ripped off. What is it now? The number supposedly from Secular Talk, which could be true, but the last time I checked, it was like 17 or 18 million people were ripped off their health insurance, and that's because the Affordable Care Act. They got rid of the subsidies that were there during the pandemic under Joe Biden. And then they took that off, and a lot of people were just saying, oh, it's just the pandemic, it was just supposed to be for the pandemic. But you got to think, like, these are life and death decisions. It almost makes you want to bawl of how, like, sad it is. And I'm not impacted of the Affordable Care Act, but it's like, people are going to die because they don't want to go to the hospital because they don't have insurance. You know how sad that is? You know how fucking sad that is? Like, there's Americans, and I know Americans, that have to have a GoFundMe page to help with their medical bills. Or their massive disabilities, right? Without naming names, or, people that I know. And it's like, this is fucked up. Like, and it comes down to private health insurance, right? And there's tons of corporate interests there and all that stuff, and I get it. But it is sad. In a way, with the rain, it is sad. Even Mother Nature's crying. Because it's like, it's sad. It's sad. Like, there should be receipts to being in the richest country in the world, right? And, like, you can't give up. It's just like 2020 all over again, where even if we win the midterms, or if we don't, if we lose control, we still don't get the Congress, right? We gotta try. Even if we don't get it, I'm not expecting anything. I'm expecting us not to gain control of both houses based on the predictors, but I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong. I want to be swept off my feet by the Democratic Party, and because like elections are so weird. Like when you look at the polling, you can look at polling and they'll say, oh, just like in the Texas race, it'll say, the Texas race is, neck and neck, but then it'll be like on election day with all the finagling and corporate interests and Republican Party doing stuff with mail-in ballots and absentee voting and getting people off voter rolls, deceased people that have the same name in that state off the voter rolls. Like they do this. Like they did this with Kamala Harris. They did it with 1.5 million votes with Kamala Harris. And if they didn't do that, she would have won those swing states, right? It would have been much closer, right, than it was, right? But they do this. Like, Republicans do this, right? Because if they don't do this, they lose, and then they can, and then they can claim on both sides of it, whether they lose or they win, they could say, well, we did it for the election integrity, right? We did it for election fraud reasons and election security. Well, the thing is, though, is like, I will actually look up stuff of like election security, and it's literally all bullshit, right? So it's really just to suppress voters. It really is. Like, I'll look at it and I'll be like, why are these people taking off, Like, you'll go and look at it and it'll be like, oh, they didn't do it in cursive on the fucking form, or they missed one letter, or they missed whatever, It's like very tiny details that they, made a blemish on the document, right? Like, they're not like full on, oh, they're illegal, like, oh, they're double voting, which, with Trump, there was Trump voters that were voting twice. That's mud, that's not blood. Or grass stain. So it's like, so it's like, you don't get that on the left. And that's not propaganda. It's like, no, like, there's like no registered Democrats that do that, right? And even if they do, they go to jail for that, because that's fraud. But like, election fraud is not a big thing. Like, it's not a thing. So like, the thing that, they'll say on Fox News and conservative medias, they'll say, oh, there's so much election fraud. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Or if it does, it's like one single person. It's not like hundreds of thousands of people or making up names. No, like, no, you have to have your social security card, driver's license. I think when I did it, it was like a birth certificate. Now they're trying to do, oh, you got to get a real ID. You got to get, all different types of shit. And it's just adding more barriers, because it's just like, like these same people, it's like, they can send you off to war at 18 years old, but you can't drink alcohol till you're 21, and you can't smoke a cigarette till you're 21, and it's the same fucking fallacy in voting. And it's like, why do these people gotta sign up for selective service as soon as they turn 18, but you have to have all these fucking requirements to vote, to decide the future of your country, and like the trajectory and the spirit, literally the spirit of your people? Like, you would be surprised by like the presidents. Like, you could, and it sounds weird until you're like a political person like me, but you can kind of feel it in the people. Like, people are less happy, like, when this guy was in office, in both instances, and you can feel different vibrations of people. Like, you genuinely can feel people are less happy under this guy. Like, even if they're registered Republicans or MAGA, like, you can feel it. And it's sad. Makes you want to cry. But you can feel it. Like, people are worse off. Gas is higher. We're at our worst level in our crude oil strategic reserve since 1983, right? So we're at just below half, and you just feel people that are struggling, like childcare and insurance, and it's like basic things that you wouldn't think of other countries having these problems. You have that in America, and it's sad. It is sad, because it's like, makes you want to bawl for these people, even though I don't experience it. I don't experience it firsthand. That bothers me. That makes me want to bawl. Because it's like, we have one life. And, you see these people less happy than they were 4 years ago. Or, take for granted our democracy. And it sounds like a hot word to say democracy, but it's like, no, we have a Supreme Court that's packed with conservatives. Got one that's going to retire. We're probably going to get another conservative judge. And they already overturned Roe v. Wade versus Texas, or in Texas. I think it was in the state of Texas, which was the woman's right to choose. And I think they tried to make abortion illegal. They wanted to try to do that. And I think some Republicans were trying to say it was like there's an exception in rape or incest or sexual assault, stuff like that. But there was even hardliners in the conservative party that were even against that. And it's like, that's not right. That's not right. You pay taxes, and you're telling people what to do with their biological body. And, like, I'm not one of those guys where I'm like, if the guy plants his seed in that woman, he's kind of he's that's his responsibility, though. Like, that's his responsibility as a man, right? So it's like, if a guy does that, and now it's her problem, that guy's not out of commission for 8 months carrying that baby, right? The woman is, right? So it's like, could you imagine if guys, I know it's biologically impossible, but can you imagine if guys could carry around a human inside them for 8 months and feel all the fucking pain and hormones and all that shit? Could you imagine that? Us guys would be flipping the fuck out, right? We'd be angry, grumpy, pissed off, and not to mention all the biological stuff that women have to deal with. On top of being, a productive person, it's like, no, we need to ease the suffering of people, and that's always my end goal in politics. It's like we need to ease the suffering of everyday people, all the way down to like retirement age. Like, and I get it. It probably won't happen overnight, and it probably won't be big ass changes. But it's like, I think the latest I read for people to retire was like 67 and a half, and I think of older people, and I'm like, is that really the best we can do for older people? 67 and a half to get full benefits. Now, you can retire early. I don't know what it is, 63 and a half. I don't know the specifics. Probably elderly people could explain it better to me than I can to YouTube and my audience. I don't know the specifics. I'm not an egghead in that, right? But it's like, even these older people, it bothers me. It bothers me. It makes me want to cry. Because it's like, richest country in the world. We have all this money. We have, the best, one of the top productive. I don't know about the best. That's debatable based on productivity. But we have one of the best workforces in America. We have young people stepping up to the plate in the workforce. We need to take care of these older people. Like, it's just shitty. And it's like, life is too short. And, you see these people that, they want to enjoy their retirement. And, we never know when we're going to go, And it's like, we as a country owe that to our people. And at the same time, when they retire, younger people can, depending on how the person feels, could train that newer hire, or maybe not. But it would provide jobs to the younger generation, or maybe a generation behind them. Maybe not as younger as me, or even Gen Z, but maybe millennials or something. Or Gen X or whatever, depending on how young they are. But it's like, we owe this shit to our fucking people. And you see that in everyday people, and you're like, these people aren't happy. And I don't know if it's a party thing, but you definitely notice it at the head of the state of your country. And you can feel it in your bones. Maybe not literally, but you can feel it spiritually. And I'm an atheist. I don't care if people are religious, doesn't bother me. But even I can feel it in people's vibrations and how people feel and shit like that. And it's like, we have all this great land, and like they're just like getting rid of environmental regulations here and there willy nilly, you know. And I can't give you the specifics, but you guys can look it up. But it's like all the way down to like pulling us out of the Paris Climate Accords again with his second Trump term, which reduces the carbon particulates in the air. So like when you breathe, there's certain limits in the air with like what you breathe in, so it's safe to breathe in oxygen. It sounds silly. Like a lot of Americans, I think, take it for granted. Like we take it for granted that like even people that voted for the guy, like I voted for him in his first term, and I wasn't politically articulate or politically educated enough to know the real dangers of that, until you see it, because people want to vote for the revolutionary, which was kind of what I did in my first term, and that was what, 10 years ago, so I would have been just maybe, when he came onto the scene, 19, 20 years old, so I was young. Now I'm 30, and it's like, you would notice it in his first term when I got out of the following him, so hard, about halfway through his first term and then into his second term, you could feel it. You could feel negativity. Like, you could feel, like, makes you want to bawl. But you can feel that people aren't happy. People aren't happy. Now, maybe some are, but I don't notice it. But, like, people aren't better off. People are struggling worse, Factories are closing down. Even the good things that Joe Biden did, like putting more money and subsidies into solar power, and then right when Trump came in, he did an executive order to remove that, which he did. People can look that up. That's not partisan. It's like all these things that can create jobs or at least curtail the loss of jobs to such an exodus in the United States. It's like he swiped that away, right? And you're not going to convince these people. And that's not my goal. But the fact of the matter is that he did do that. And yeah, you just feel that people are tired of that. People are, it's so weird. Like, if you're like a European listening to me or whatever, which again, I'd be surprised if I even get one view, because I probably don't tag the stuff right. But it's like Europeans take for granted, and Canadians, just up north from us, take for granted the social safety net programs that they have, like universal health care or some sort of public health care, or health care that's not private health insurance, right? Like, there's still private health insurance in those countries, and probably in their countries. They will tell you more. I don't know their whole system. But it's like, in this country, if you're uninsured, you're pretty much screwed. Like, you pay the full price. So, like, there's in-network and out-of-network costs. The insurance is... Europeans and probably Canadians are going to think that this is crazy. Especially the Europeans, because I think they're a little bit more progressive even than Canada. But there's 3 different types of health insurance in America. There's health insurance, like your normal shit. There's vision, and then there's dental. So there's 3 different types of insurance, and like if you're working, you have to have, and you want to get stuff done, you have to have 3 different types of insurance taken out of your paycheck every week, or every check, bi-weekly, monthly, however it works for those folks. And it's like, this is basic shit. Like, this should be coming out of our taxes, right? And this is just, some Americans are so used to, like, private health care that it's like, they just think that that's, like, the norm. But it's like, no, this is fucked up. This is fucked up. And it's like, when is this going to stop? Like, when are Americans going to realize that this is fucked up? Right? And it's like, It's like, like even like with healthcare, it's like, okay, what, you got to cover a $500 deductible. Well, thank God I'm not fucking, struggling. But I mean, even with as good of health insurance I have or other people have, it's like you're still got to pay a deductible. So that eats away at your nest egg, what little nest egg you got in this country. Even if you work a lot and you have a good job, you're still struggling. Like you couldn't ever fucking repair your roof all at fucking once, or fucking do X, Y, and Z with your house, or pay off the fucking mortgage all at once, or that gone are the ages of that. Like that's I don't know if older people understand that, or if it's just a different time that they came into the job market. But like younger people are really getting screwed. And I think Gen Z especially kind of knows it. And it's like it's a different time. Like houses are no longer, 20, 30, $40,000 houses. Like a lot of houses are like over $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, right? And it's just like we're in a path that's unsustainable, right? And it's like the annual raises aren't keeping up with inflation, or barely are. And then that little difference that keeps up with inflation, you got to keep in mind there's cable that's going up to $300 a month. You've got fucking, food that's always going up, and now you have gas. So it's like you're at a net negative, even with all that cost of living, So it's like, and that's with the union, like, and I. Now if there's other people that don't have a fucking union, it's worse, right? So it's like and then it kind of goes on to the consumer on top of that. So if like they hire somebody to make up for that loss in earnings, they have to increase their services, and it's like it screws everybody. It screws the businesses, even big businesses, small businesses, especially small businesses, and then the consumer, the regular working class people, and then they hoard all the fucking money at the top. Like it's to the point where it's like it's unsustainable. Like the last time I checked, it was what, 2/3 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. I remember I had like an old vlog where it was like 33% of Americans. Now it's 2/3. All right. I wouldn't be surprised. It's like 90% of Americans out here that are struggling, that are working. I'm not even saying retired, and I'm sure that maybe they barely get by. I don't know. I don't know their financial situation. But it's like, even with a good job, it's like still people are still screwed in this country. Like, don't get me wrong. Like it sucks. Like the only way to fucking make it in this country is you gotta fucking work 12-hour shifts, like if you're me, and then you have a little bit of a nest egg. But it's like, even then, it's like you're always gone, Like I love my job, and I ain't complaining. I love my job, would never leave. And I like learning skills and stuff. But I'm just saying, like everyday people, it's like it's never enough, and it's just sad. It is. It's just sad. You think of the regular people, and it's like we're not better off. We're worse off than we were 4 years ago, and it's getting worse. Like wages aren't keeping up with the job market in paying people just a little bit more. Like some people might say it is. I disagree. And and the same thing with like minimum wage. Like minimum wage, even $20 an hour for minimum wage in this country, it's not enough. And then, the counter argument is, well, it's not a job that they're going to be at forever. Or, it's not for fucking people that are going to be there forever or whatever. It's for young kids or high schoolers or whatever. Well, the fact of the matter is, there's older people that work at gas stations, that work at fucking Burger King and McDonald's and have careers there, and it's like we should be paying them for their experience, right? Like they should be paid a better wage, because if you pay them a better wage, you're going to get better job quality, you're going to get better job service, people are going to give a shit about their job, you're going to bring joy to them because they get a bigger check, you're going to get better taxes, those taxes can go more into the roads, you help your fucking community, people feel a little bit better, people fucking learn skills, they actually give a shit about what they do for a living, and you make the world a better fucking place. Like, instead of people having to work 2 jobs, or people fucking doing DoorDash, or fucking, stuff like that. And we just owe it to these people. And, like, that's why I say it's like, right now we're getting screwed. And I don't know if conservatives see that, but I can feel it, and I can't give you, because I don't have a post-it note. I don't have it on my hand of like, oh, give you the statistics, but I can just go anecdotally of like, you can feel it in the people, right? Like, you can feel it in the people. And it always feels like people don't trust people. People are in housing situations. People are homeless. I see more homeless when I drive through communities. I see more, people aren't in the right headspace. People are wondering where they're going to get their next check or their next meal or all types of shit. And it's like, it's sad. Like, we deserve more for our people. There should be a receipt to living in the richest country in the world. Maybe now the second richest, but still one of the richest countries in the world. There should be an incentive to being an American, right? There should be. And like, I'm going to circle back around before I close out. It's like, we take democracy for granted. We really do. And I was listening to Joe Biden about it. And people at the time when he was in power, and I guess I kind of do with Trump too, but it's like, we take democracy and liberties and civil liberties for granted. And it's like, basic things like the 14th Amendment in the Constitution, the United States Constitution. And it's July 5th, so it's one day after 4th of July. Like, we take for granted basic civil liberties. And people think that, like, like, other countries don't have birthright citizenship. And they do. They do. Our fatherland, or our homeland, our ancestral land of Britain has it. And Germany and France. And, like, most of the European Union countries have birthright citizenship, right? And it's like these are basic rights, and then they're trying to divide it by immigrants and saying, well, immigrants born here should not be an American citizen. And really what it does is it does two things. It separates it as an immigrant versus people that are white, people that are Americans that were already here, and born here. Like as soon as I was born, I'm an American citizen. That's what birthright citizenship is, right? People think it's just like, immigrants. It's like, in the Constitution, and I can give you the specific line. I think it's Section 1 of the 14th Amendment. All people that are born in the United States are citizens. Naturalized or whatever the fuck. They're all citizens. And you had a Supreme Court of 3 conservatives that tried to say that's not a thing. But luckily, that was the only thing out of this conservative Supreme Court that ruled it's constitutional. And, like, conservatives and MAGA, like, view that as, like, you're anti-worker, or, they're taking our jobs, and what else is their counter-arguments or ideas? Like, you're not America first and shit. And it's like, and I'm trying not to swear here, but it's like, that's what America is your parents, just say if they were European or whatever, and they were born here. Their parents were European, they came here, boom. You were born in the United States, that means you're an American. And it's like, you have all the protections of an American. Like, these people take the liberties and rights for granted. And it's like, no. And, like, this was passed, I think, in the 19th century, so in the 1800s, I think 1880s, 1860s, 1880s, I don't know. But it's like, these are basic things. So it's like, people that haven't experienced this, they think it's like, that like, we don't, they think it's like, that you're pitting them against immigrants to take them out of jobs. And it's like, they're not taking you out of a job. But even if they are, they must do a better job. But no, they aren't taking you out of a job. They're doing jobs that most Americans don't want for lower pay or under the table. And they're doing migrant work. They're farmers. They cultivate crops. In fact, we have had such a mass exodus of deportations from ICE that we have billions of dollars in food waste from our farms for like the past 2 years. And that extra money could have been, that extra food could have fed our people here. And on top of that, any surplus of food that was rotting on those farms would have given billions in exports to other countries, to our pocketbooks, to go into taxes and roads and bridges, and and also create jobs. So it's like, they think, the ones that are hardcore still and still convinced in that ideology, they think that they're getting screwed, but they're not getting screwed. He's taking away liberties one by one, and this one's right out in the wide open. And it's like, no. If you're born here, doesn't matter if you're illegal, undocumented, says right in the Constitution, anyone that's born here, doesn't say it in those specific terms, but it's right out in the wide open where it says, anyone that's born in the United States, to an immigrant, naturalized, whatever the fuck, is a U.S. citizen. It's right in the Constitution, right? That was in that amendment. And this guy's trying to go around that, and Republicans are trying to go around that, and it's like, for people that are already born here, they don't realize, like, they're taking your civil liberties away without you even realizing it. Right? And, like, these people think, well, it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to me. But then they're deporting white people and white tourists from Europe. They've done that to people from Germany and other countries. They've already done this. You have tourism way down, so that's less money to go to our roads, bridges, workers to provide tourist guides, and all these services. Like, money's down, taxes are down, and you're hurting business in general. The overall vibe of the people is low. People are depressed in this country. People are suffering from mental illness like depression and anxiety because they don't know if they're going to be deported, right? And these people think that it's like, like I said, they think that they're trying to take their jobs, and it's like, no, they were already doing jobs that we weren't doing, right? So at the end of the day, it hurts our bottom line. It hurts our standing in the world, and that's not even to get on the foreign affairs, but like, it does. It hurts the overall system of the United States and its people, all the way down to putting money in your paycheck, food prices, providing jobs for the tourism industry in the United States. Like, I think they said, the last number I saw, it was like, what? Tourism in the United States from foreigners coming in. Like, we're not a big tourist spot in the United States, but we still get a lot, right? It's like tourism is down like 30-40% compared to like last year, the year before, whatever the fuck. And it's like, that's lost money there. We're paying increased prices at the pump with food and services to make up for those differences. And it's like, all this shit, it's like, it's just sad. It's fucking sad. And you think of everyday people, and you think, these people are not as happy as they were 4 years ago. And don't get me wrong, like, they would critique their opposing party that they didn't like. But, like, you would see more happiness in these people. Like, they wouldn't like what that person believed in, even though, or, and then they, take the things that we have for granted in this country. But it's like, those people were more happy 4 years ago than they were today. Like you genuinely see people, I wouldn't say miserable, but more subdued, more, I don't know, depressed, more on edge than they were a couple years back, right? Like, I just noticed that. And it's not that I just now figured that out. It's like, no, you can feel it in the vibrations of people and how you interact with people. And it's like when you do good things for your subjects, for your people, it's like the people, everything works out smoothly because they feel that their government cares about them. And like, the conservative mindset is to say, well, the government is the big bad boogeyman and they are the problem, right? That's the Reagan mindset. It's like, no, when you fix the corruption, when you go after corrupt billionaires like Donald Trump and his family, when you go after white collar crime like tax evasion that he's literally pardoned people, no, the government is actually very helpful, right? But it's not like this like nanny state like they try to say, but it's like, no, it provides a certain level of living and health care and rights to reproductive health and child care and all types of basic services that we take for granted, you know? Or that other nations take for granted, excuse me. So, it it is, it is what it's crazy. But yeah, that's like, I don't want to say a rant, because it's not a rant. But yeah, it's like, no, everyday people deserve to fucking live happy, and a lot of people on edge, and you definitely notice a trend when there's, with him back in office. I don't even want to say conservatives, because I just noticed it with him. I haven't really noticed it with previous presidents, other than Trump. But yeah, it's like, it is. You definitely notice that lower frequency. People are more depressed and shit. People don't trust people as much. People are more closed-minded. Hell, even I am probably. And like, we're all a little bit more judgmental. We're all a little bit more nasty inside. And it's like, it's because this guy made it the norm. Normalized it. Like, all the stuff he does turns to shit. Anything to make a quick buck for his family so they can extract the wealth from working class people. And that's not a talking point. Just look at the stuff he does. And even union membership is at its lowest membership rate right now. So like, when people can look this up too, is there's a direct correlation between the 50s and 60s and worker to CEO salary ratio. And like, when they closed that income gap, that was when people really liked unions. That was at the height of unions. And like, people could make ends meet and have a nest egg and everything else. Like, in America now, it's like everybody's on edge. Everybody's on edge. Nobody can afford shit. Nobody can afford shit to where there's like a fucking nest egg. And it's sad. But yeah, that's the end of that. But just to close out though, like, you gotta keep fighting. It's just like 2020 all over again. It makes you want to not vote. It makes you want to stay home. It makes you not want to care and tune it out, but you have to fucking vote. You have to vote. Because it sounds ironic and it sounds cheesy to say, but like, you'd be surprised, but who you vote for changes the whole vibration of the people around you, based on how they govern and what money goes to where and where their priorities are at and how they view people and etiquette and decorum and all different types of shit. It's like, all this shit impacts the people that they govern. And it sounds really complex, but it's really not. So it's like, when they see a leader that's out of control and does stuff out of control every single day, every single hour, every single minute, they think that that's the norm, or that's just that person being that person with their personality. And it's like, that's not normal. It's illegal, unethical. The guy's illegal, unethical, and immoral. He has no scruples. He has no filter. The guy's, cognitively declined. And it's like, no, this isn't normal. And we have to get out of it. Again. So 2028 for the general election, and 2026 is kind of the same thing as 2020, where it's like, you have to fucking vote against those ideologies. And yeah, it's like, the gist of it is, you got to keep fighting. You got to know that it's not always going to be like this, and America's in a rough patch, and you can't give up, because if you give up, they win. That ideology wins. And as Joe Biden would say, America never gives up. We fight. You fight, fight, fight. And it really is about having decency for human beings, and equal rights and equal protections under the law, and liberties and social liberties, and being able to critique politicians without fear of reprisal or fucking retaliation or jail or arrest or whatever, And like, we've taken this, is it taken or taken? We've taken this for granted for so long, especially conservatives, where, they view it as, well, it's not me, it doesn't impact me, so I don't care. But there's always a way in karma or in cycles where that always goes full circle, And it's like, it's a very slippery slope, and it always comes full circle. So it's like, no, you have to protect social liberties. You have to protect people's rights, And like, I'm a big thing of the ACLU. Like, as long as it protects people's rights, social liberties, and it's, in the Constitution, I like the ACLU. I'm biased. But that's why I like them so much, is it protects people's individual rights and protects their freedoms. And, they have great lawyers with the ACLU too. But yeah, just basic shit like that. It's like, no, you gotta care about people. You gotta care about doing the right thing. Not just because it's economically advantageous, but because it's also the right thing to do. And like, we need to get back into that moral thing. And even if it isn't economically advantageous, it's still the right thing to do, right? So like, if you take care of your people, the ends justify the means, and the system works. Right now the system is like a gear grinding on a chipped edge of the gear. It's trying to move, but it's not lubricated, and it's broken off. Part of it is broken. And so, like, you have to replace the part. It's the same thing. But, that's about it. You just gotta fight, fight, fight. Basically, don't lose hope. It's just like 2020. You can't lose hope. You got the midterms. And you gotta have a politician that's hopeful, too, of the future. You have to be hopeful. You have to care. And you have to look at finding a politician that genuinely wants to help people and not divide people. And as soon as you find a politician that talks about helping people instead of dividing people and characterizing them or compartmentalizing them into different groups, then your conscience, you'll vote your conscience. And that's what I listen to in a politician. But yeah, don't lose hope. Fight, fight, fight. Volunteer if you want, or if you have to, whatever. But yeah, don't lose hope. It's a tough time in America, but it's not forever, and it's only temporary, and we got a lot of work ahead of us. But just gotta push on. It's the American way. Peace.